Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel, and hopefully you can hear me. That would be great. I did unmute the mic, so we will see if this works out. I did notice in a couple of the playbacks too that occasionally when the video starts, it takes a second or two to sync up. I don't know why. I don't know why StreamYard is just being all kinds of weird, but at least we figured out how to fix it when I bring guests in. So that's good. But welcome to the chat, and we'll get through there in a second. But if you could just confirm that you can hear me, I'm a little gun shy about that. And I only trust certain people to tell me if they can hear me or not. I don't trust the Matchsticks or the Daniel Herons or that crew or the Owen Listers. They'll mess with me. I need a Troy or an Annette or somebody like that. Tell me if you can hear me. That'd be great. So coming through fine. Back to the drawing board. Yes, thank you, Sartorially Gain. Good. Probably am a little out of sync on Lister. That should straighten up. It tends to straighten up a little bit. Let me know if it doesn't within a few minutes. I don't know why that's the case. Let me sometimes I don't know. I'll see if this works, but let's see. I don't know if that'll work or not, but sometimes it does. I don't know. See if that does it. So only it looked as good on StreamYard as it does on or look as good on YouTube as it does on StreamYard. That'd be cool. So today we've got the Dune book study at 10 and the pre-show that we are doing for that now. Honestly, I don't have a lot prepared for this writing lesson pre-show or this writing pre-show. It's not really much of a lesson this time around, but I still wanted to do it to keep the tradition alive here. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop those writing questions, or about the craft of writing, or about certain stories or movies or whatever in terms of the writing of them. We can definitely go through that. I mean, I do have some stuff that I can talk about, of course. So it's not like it's going to be just me staring at you until you ask a question or anything. But now would be a good stream for you to get those questions out, because I will be mining the chat for those that are there. And let's see. Welcome everybody here. I think I don't know who was first. Owen Lister might be first. You might be first, Owen Lister. Phoenix Halcyon, I see there as well. Welcome. Green Lion Girl. Let's see. Troy Pacelli in there. Definitely. Yeah, it was late. I was late putting this up too, because today was my first day back teaching. So I was gone all day for that, and then got back and grabbed a nap, which turned out to be a much needed sleep of death nap. So yeah, that, then waking up and trying to get going, and then there's some other things going on that were trying to pull my attention away. So I didn't get to prep as much as I would have. I was going to read an intro to one of my own world building stories, but we'll have to save that for next time. And several times today I was going to post a link on the Facebook group for people to post a writing sample or something like that. I know I said I was going to do that this week, but the week/day just got away from me. So we'll get there though. We'll get there. Let's see who else is here with us. The Sartorially Gain, as I said, welcome. We have Sound Engravers here. Welcome. Got quite a few people in here. Good to see everybody. The usual showing up. Back to the drawing board. Daniel Heron, Mr. Matchstick. So great to see everybody. Paladin Demo, Casey Scott. All right. Let's see. Now I forgot where I'd asked the question about writing, and see if anybody has that. I do see my name tagged a couple of times. Daniel Harris says, "What? You don't trust me?" Not a bit. Looks like the sync is good now too, if that's what you're saying, Owen Lister. I appreciate that. Started out of sync, but it evened out by this point. Yeah, that's it. That's what it does. I don't know why. No clue. Let's see. Paladin Demo says, "Why punctuation is important." There's your topic. Got that from a tabloid. Yeah, punctuation is important. I mean, I don't think anybody would reasonably argue that it's not important, but you do have people argue, and this is one of the things that I start my semester off with my students, and that's not even technically creative writing, but I tell them, I say, writing is both thinking and communicating. You have to think, you have to know what you're going to write. That's the thinking. You have to have your ideas. But so many people just stop there. So many people think, well, I've got the ideas, I've got the writing. So editors, they handle all the communicating. There are people that do that. No, not true at all. That's not how that works at all. In fact, take that off there now. If you have the coolest ideas in the world, that's great. You've got cool ideas, but you're not writing until you can successfully communicate those ideas. Now, if you pay a ghostwriter, that's really what people are talking about. When people say, oh, an editor does that. No. They're talking about a ghostwriter, and a ghostwriter gets paid high dollar. So you've got people who will come to you and say, well, I've got a really cool idea for a story. I've got the idea. That's my half. Now you just write it down. That's your half. No. That's the writing. Anybody can have an idea. Ideas really are a dime a dozen. Every single person dreams. So every single person has a brain that comes up with story ideas. I mean, think about it. That's what dreams are. They're the things that happen to you, and you filter them throughout your day, and then you create these sort of narratives at night. Your brain automatically does that. That's the ideas. Everybody does that. Ideas aren't hard to come by. Ideas that you enjoy enough to want to create and have the sticking power with you to create and sit down and gruel over and actually structure and pace and come up with a tale. Those might be hard to find for you, but that's just because you need to find something that you can stick with. That's the real work of writing. The real work of writing is making yourself do it and sticking to it and doing the drafts and doing the revision and staying excited about an idea when you just realize that the last 10 pages you wrote need to be completely rewritten because this thing doesn't make sense now in your story. And you pull on this thread. It's like a sweater. Oh, you pulled that thread, that loose thread that was supposed to just pop right off and be a nice whole neat sweater afterwards. What ends up unraveling half of it in the process. That's it's just the way writing is sometimes. So it's thinking, but it's also communicating. And communicating is all of that. Communicating in terms of creative writing, certainly it's sentence structure, it's the flow, it's punctuation and all of that, but it's also the order of ideas, the pacing, the tension, the character development and all of that. That's successful communications. That's what has to be learned. Anybody, especially in this YouTube community, in our community here, we have a lot of creatives, and that's great, and I love to see it. We have a lot of people who are self-taught in some ways, and that's fine, that's great. But you do have to follow out that self-taught aspect in certain ways. And when it comes to the writing portion, if you're an artist or whatever, trying to write, draw your own story, you do need to have that education. And by education, I mean seeking out, not necessarily an accredited institution education, but, you have to spend time learning that. That's something that just has to be learned. There's no way around it unless you've got a lot of money and you just want to pay somebody to ghostwrite it all for you. That's the answer to that. Let's see, scrolling down there. Did I miss something there? Back to the drawing board says, do you have any least favorite tropes of writing? Stuff that really annoys you? I don't know if I can pick out a specific trope that annoys me, but I think it's whenever anything is unearned. Gratuitous things, I think, really annoy me. So it doesn't matter what it is. It can be anything. Anytime that somebody just expects you to, as a reader or as an audience member, to just accept this because they're so, they got all these parts to their story or movie or whatever, and they're so excited about this part to it that they just sort of expect you to accept this other portion over here when they haven't really earned that. They haven't actually gone into it and made that work. I know that's kind of being vague and ambiguous. I'm trying to think of an example. One will come to me. But just gratuitousness. I don't like gratuitousness. I like things that are integrated. I like plots that are integrated, and you can't just have things randomly show up just because you needed something to move the plot along, Maybe that's a little bit more specific. I'll think about that. Let's see here. Oh, and listener says, when I finish my comic, I'll mail you a physical copy to review next stream, maybe. Well, I do reviews occasionally, but I can't really guarantee I'd review a whole comic. But if you're talking about like a sample of it for the writing lesson, absolutely. I do comic reviews. I just haven't done them in a while. I think the reviews I'm working on right now, I need to get back to the EU reviews and finish that up. The Tales of the Jedi comics and stuff like that. So not off the table, but you let me know. Sound Engraver says, question for writing: is it best to follow a formula or structure for a genre like space opera, or can do with a experiment, or can you go with experimental if done well? Okay, so yeah, formula with let me put the question up. I need to be better about that. Sound Engraver's so good about that, putting those questions up, but it'll help me keep track of it if I can turn around and find it in the StreamYard. So yeah, genres do have certain tropes that work with certain genres, and there are certain formulas that work best with certain genres. And we all know in this community, the last thing we want to do is to set out to subvert our audience's expectations when it comes to those certain tropes and formulas. So I would say certain basic aspects of that formula, like, like the hero remaining the hero. If you have an aspirational hero, don't turn them on their head at the end, that kind of thing. Basic tenets of it, you don't want to necessarily experiment with around too much, or else you're not working with that genre anymore. But I don't think there's a problem. I think you can be experimental within a genre. I don't think you have to tell a rote tale in terms of these are the plot points, these are the things that are supposed to happen and so forth. I think the problem comes when people set out to do a gotcha moment. That is another thing to answer back to the drawing board's question. Some things that really bother me. I hate it when a writer just wants to do a gotcha at the end, just for the sole purpose of being able to say, well, I got the audience there. They didn't see that coming. We talked a lot about, as much as I love Joss Whedon's work, when he kills off Wash in Serenity, completely unearned, no reason for it whatsoever, doesn't advance the plot or character development in any way. It's just because he wanted to be edgy and he wanted the audience to go, oh, because they knew they were going to kind of expect Shepard Book at that point because he's known for killing people off. So yeah, as long as you've got a reason in the story for everything that you're doing, and famously, to subvert your expectations, Rian Johnson doesn't have a reason for any of that. What's his reason for making Luke be an old, decrepit hermit? Because the audience won't expect it. That's it. That's all. That's the only reason he had for that. It makes no sense in the overall tale of Star Wars. It makes no sense in anything. He just got all kind of giddy all over himself because, the audience won't expect it. Won't I have pulled out a surprise for them? That's not what we come to stories for. We don't want to be able to expect everything necessarily that goes on, but we do need to be able to expect certain things. So, yeah, I hope I answered your question, Sound Engraver. That's kind of, again, I'm kind of being vague without a lot of specifics, but as long as there's a reason for it in the story, I think the audience will applaud experimentation. Certain things, certain lines just can't be crossed, I guess. I'm going to say that. Let's see. Some people are tagging me in some things I'm not quite sure about. Oh, and Lister, thank you very much for the super chat. Let me continue my... Whoop. It's so hard to bounce back from YouTube to the StreamYard. There it is. There's a super chat. Hey, they have highlighted the super chats now. That's something they didn't used to do on StreamYard. Oh, Lister says, for $40.99, thank you, sir. I've got a writing challenge for you. Write a short story like J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson and try to make it work. Well, then it wouldn't be a short story like J.J. Abrams or Rian Johnson. If it works, that takes away their stamp on it there, actually. I mean, you can do a story with J.J. Abrams mystery boxes. I mean, the idea of J.J. Abrams mystery boxes, that really is born out of the Hitchcock's MacGuffin. That's really where it gets its start from. And it's not a bad idea all in all. It's just that J.J. Abrams completely and utterly hangs everything he ever writes on this trope. And it gets stale. And you can see the fact that his writing becomes just, centered around it to the extent that it, you can't expect, you know what's going to happen. You know that, this is the structure I get from that. It's like for musicians, certain pop musicians, especially when they put out new albums, like, oh yes, I see you wanted to sound like, your last album or whatever, or do your signature sound. And you got other artists or bands who really try to stretch and do a little something different. Not that it needs to be different, because at the same time, I don't want to hear a country album from Aerosmith. I want to hear that rock and blues rock when I put Aerosmith on. But within that, you can experiment a bit. Let's see. Find our next thing here. Green Line Girl says, can I send you a link to an ongoing web novel since you don't get on Facebook much? Yeah, if you want to, now web novel, I'm not going to be able to look at the whole web novel, of course, but if you want me to look at a sample of your work there for the writing lesson stream, it really would be easiest if you could, you said you don't get on Facebook much, fair enough. If you could just at least jump on to throw that link up there on the thread of the Facebook group, that would be the easiest way. If not, you could email me at my email is in the stream below there, I think somewhere, and just email me the first 1 to 2 paragraphs of your work. And then I'll just make sure I put that in the next, hopefully I'll remember, me and organization, but hopefully I can put that in the next stream, and we'll do that. So there. Let's see. Troy Pacelli. You mentioned dreams being the basis for stories. The key to interesting stories is dreams that are common to humanity, the collective unconsciousness. Great. Yeah. Way to pull that full circle. That's really cool. Yeah. So dreams are proof that everybody can tell a story, or at least have the ideas for a story, telling the stories differently. So everybody can, the brain does write, period. And you're absolutely right. It's because, as people, we are pulling from that, our own unconsciousness, our own subconscious, but certainly our own collective unconsciousness as well. However you contextualize that, spiritually, or even psychologically vestigial, or something like that. However people look at that. Let me see here. Paladin Demo says, have you seen a hurricane come to Missouri? Is that the name of a story or something? No, or a movie or something like that? No, haven't. That's a new one to me. Let's see, Owen Lister here has a idea. I think a writing trope I've come to hate now is to deconstruct everything. It's nothing but deconstruction of basic storytelling nowadays. Deconstruction can work, but it's abused. Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's, the whole channel is kind of the mantra of that, but you're absolutely right. Deconstruction for the sake of deconstruction. One thing to think about as a writer, when you have an idea for a story and you want to tell a story, that's good. You need to think about your themes. That's one of the things I talked about last time. Think about your themes. The kinds of themes that you tend to tell tend to come out in your work, definitely. But then there's the idea of what is the message that you want to convey. Now, this is subtle because you do not at all want to start from the idea of message. You start from your idea of a story, and you let that story organically tell itself. This is what, Hollywood's been doing lately and still does, is they start with message. Okay, we want to get across this message. How can we manufacture a story around that message? That's the absolute wrong way to do it. But as you're writing a story, and especially as you become a more prolific writer in your own right, you'll get to know your work. Just as you get to know your themes, you want to try and get to know certain messages or values that tend to creep out in your stories as well. And that's something, as your story takes shape, I think just like with themes, it's important to sort of take note of what message your story's sending. The reason is not so that you can tailor the whole story around that message and just make it a propaganda, because that's what propaganda is. That becomes propaganda. That's not writing or not an organic story. But if you do take note of what kind of message your story's sending, then that can help you avoid what you're talking about there on a list of the deconstruction. So if you're building up to this one moment, well, let that moment take center stage in the end, and don't just try to subvert it in the end just because, that kind of idea. So yeah, I 100% agree with you there. Definitely. And yeah, Troy, thanks for dropping that link to the Facebook group. Much appreciated. Oh, Paladin was talking about the actual hurricane. Hurricane Laura is coming my way. I've Seen the cloud bank this afternoon. Oh yeah, sorry. Well, be safe, man. Definitely, definitely. Yeah, we've been worried about family and his family and everything. Everybody in Louisiana, but yeah, different places. It's coming. So definitely be safe. I am not upset that I'm not in the path of that. I don't really get actual hurricanes where I live because of the mountains and whatever. I don't get tornadoes or actual hurricanes, but we can get the extreme thunderstorms, as a result of certain hurricanes as they come up the East Coast and, crash and make their way inland a bit. So, that happens. Welcome, Wolf 10 Media. See you there as well. Good to see you, sir. And we'll be getting into the book study in just a bit. Let me check my time because I did start a little late. I don't know. Oh, it's 9:40. Okay. Well, all right. I'll go for, just a little bit 10 minutes or something like that. So we'll see. See how this works. But yeah, any last minute questions, feel free to drop those. But I was originally planning today on reading a bit of that Fall of Mithrisis fantasy / sword and sorcery ish novel, just to give some examples of my own world building. The intros of it and everything like that, as we've been looking at Dune and looking at Dune's world building. This is my I don't know if I ever showed my copy on camera before, but the old Sci-Fi Book Club copy. It's pretty sweet. It's a nice size and everything for the print and whatnot too. Good for making notes in the margin. But we talked about Frank Herbert's great job of world building, so I was going to do that. It's interesting. I don't know if that story. I love the story. It's just such a short story writer that every time I get going on it and gaining traction, I'll get stalled in rewriting what I've already written. And I've written about half. I've written it as a good novella. That's where it ended, as a novella. But I know that if I can write the second half to it, which is in my brain there, then it would be a pretty sweet novel. And actually, it's one of those cases where I actually did write a good portion of the second half, but then lost the files. You ever had that happen to you? That's really discouraging. And I still got basically what happens up in my head, but that's just like, oh man, really got to go back and rewrite all that. So I get stalled in that story a number of ways because I'm used to that gratification from being a short story writer. You spend a certain amount of time on one tale, then that tale's done, and you get to go send it out, and get feedback on it and get readers and actually send it out into the world. So yeah, that's that. But I'll get around to it, and maybe next week if I can fish it out and have the time to really look at it properly, we will go ahead and share that with you. So let's see. Green Line Girl says, "Lucky, yeah, lucky me. I do live in a good place weather-wise. It's good with mountains around and certain things like that. Yeah, other than the power going out and the Wi-Fi going out." Let's see. Sartorical again. You almost had that happen, but then you remember that you had it saved on another flash drive. Yeah, I try to do that, especially now with the clouds and stuff like that. I'm always saving to a cloud or to a thumb drive, or emailing it to myself. But at one time, I just wasn't, and especially when I was working from a number of different computers, and I had that one trusty thumb drive. I made the mistake of trusting it all to the one thumb drive, and that thumb drive died or got lost or something like that. I forgot exactly how that happened. So, yeah, Big Al presents. You left me hanging on Fall of Mithrisis. Yeah, Big Al's my first reader, so he reads all of that stuff that I sent, and he was giving me great feedback. As Al does, he's really great for typos and continuity errors and stuff like that. And I just kind of stopped and left him hanging for it. But I'll get back to it, Al. It's coming. It's on my brain right now. Working on it and stuff, and trying to fish it out. So it'll happen. So Mr. Master's talking about a webcomic cast. I haven't heard about that. Cast Tunes. Oh, it's poking fun at DC. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, interesting. Oh, with Cassandra Cain and what they did to her. Gotcha. That's yeah, that was pretty sad. So. Well, I think I'll go ahead and, unless anybody has any last minute questions, feel free to throw those in. But I think I'll go ahead and throw the screen back up and go ahead and get things ready for the book stream, grab my notes for that and bring that in. And then I'll bring Al in, of course. And we should wrap up the book stream a little on the early side tonight because we don't have it quite as much to go through. We gave everybody a break this time, and we just went to the end of book 1, which is a lot shorter than the swaths that we have been going through. But there are still some amazing, in terms of content wise, really heavy stuff's going on at the end of book one, and we will be talking about it. But at the same time, I always try to. It's hard when I plan the book studies. I have to keep reminding myself, you're not there to tell them the story. You're there to study the story, because sometimes like, oh, but I got to talk about that thing that happened, but I might not really have anything analysis wise to say about it. So I'm like, well, okay, back off that. Just say what happens, ease along, and everything like that. So yeah, we might end up a little bit early with the book stream. That that would probably be a welcome thing for everybody. But then we'll hit it again next week with the next chunk of book two. So and I'll announce that. I'll go through the book here and figure out exactly what we're gonna do in terms of that. But all right, I think we'll go ahead and do that. Let me put up the screen here. I don't see anything else coming through question wise. If you think of anything, I can try and answer it at the beginning of the stream when I come back. No worries there. Otherwise, I will be back in a moment. All right, I am back, and before I do the traditional welcome, Al, I'm not going to announce you just yet, but I will. But I want to make sure that there's no delay. I did try to come back out of StreamYard and come back in while we were both backstage. I don't know if that's going to work or not, but let me wait and see how this happens. So what are you noshing on there, Al? You sound like you're eating something.
I'm chewing a piece of gum. I was going to get rid of it before you actually mentioned it, but thank you.
Okay, so how does that sound, folks? Are we talking over each other? Is there a delay? If there is, I'll back out and come back in again. But I want to know if that works doing it backstage. So I'll wait on the chat to let me know if it sounds like we're good and no delays and we're not talking over each other.
Other than the times we normally would anyway, but it happens.
Daniel Craig says it's fine. Good. All right, sounds like we're good. Paladin Demo says can't hear Al for some reason.
Can't hear me?
I can. Your halo's going up. He says there we go. I think you were just quiet for a second.
So. Well, I didn't want to talk over you.
Get rid of that now. All right, good. Looks like we're.
And just trying to make sure that you were, weren't on a delay or something. Is it just on YouTube that's happening?
I mean, you can use StreamYard to stream on Facebook and stuff, but I haven't really done that lately, so I don't know.
Well, no, I mean the 5-second delay thing. Is that just what's like? I'm talking, but what you said comes 5 seconds later.
Yeah, it seems to be that way in StreamYard.
Wow,
I don't know if it's StreamYard or YouTube.
That would be freaking annoying, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had to unlist some of the old rewatches because it was just nope, it's just not a, it's no one can re-listen to it. No one can viably re-listen to it, unfortunately. So, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes,
before
sir.
we start. The chapter we did not do last week.
Yes.
Does that start with "There is no escape? We pay for the violence of our ancestors"? The collected saying of Muad'Dib.
No. Oh wait! I'm sorry. Yes, you're right.
Oh, thank the maker and his water.
I have my book marked in a bunch of different places to show where we're going to stop for the next weeks and stuff, and I opened up to the wrong part. But yeah, no, you're right. That's right. So yeah, and again, I'm numbering these chapters along, but they're not numbered in the book, so I'm counting along, and so good luck me counting things up. So maybe I've got the numbers wrong. I don't know. But today we're going to cover up to the end of book 1. And I mean book 1 of the novel Dune, because the first book, Dune, is divided up into book 1, book 2, book 3,
Yeah, Dune, Muad'Dib, and then what's the last one?
I don't know. Unless, this is the season finale. Season 1 finale.
The Prophet is the third one.
Yeah. Good stuff. So we'll start in this chapter here that we didn't come to last time, and this is when Jessica wakes in the middle of the night. This is after that horrible dinner party. Jessica awakes, and Duncan has been drunk. Duncan's drunk at this point. They've drunken him. He's back to the palace, screaming a bunch of things. Of course, he was one of the people, or he was the one that Hawat set on to watch the Lady Jessica. So he lets it slip that she's, or he thinks she's a traitor or whatever in his drunken state. Dr. Yueh comes in to try and give him some caffeine to help him up and everything like that. But eventually this chapter ends up with a really cool scene of Jessica going back to her chambers and summoning Thufir. And Hawat comes in there, and they've got this talk where they finally kind of, come to, not blows, but really get it out in the open that, this idea of her being the traitor or not.
Yeah, I kind of like that. Very straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think I'm a traitor? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And then, it's like, oh, great. Okay, cards are on the table. Let's talk.
Yeah. Oh, and Lister for $4.99 says, I'm all snorted up with the spice and riding the sandworm. Let's do this. Yeah. Riding the sandworm. That just sounds weird, but okay.
Oh, God. Don't. Be good.
Oh, Al. I do. You're such a weirdo. I do like the The interplay between the two of them here, because as we said before, you've got these different factions within the book that do represent these masculine, feminine forces, and ultimately, the Bene Gesserit on the one side, I guess ultimately the Spacing Guild on the other side would be the other masculine force that's so entrenched within their separation of the masculinity, quote unquote masculinity, that they've become ineffective. But we see that ripple out in echoes as well. And one of those areas we see that echo out is the Mentats. So the Bene Gesserits themselves are so worried about being separated in their femininity that they end up not being very feminine and kind of making a mockery of what is supposed to be the nurturing, life-giving. They're life-giving in terms of trying to manipulate the gene pool and stuff like that, but they're not really nurturing, compassionate. It's not that kind of life-giving. And likewise with the Spacing Guild, but certainly even the Mentats, this idea of sometimes just so far trusting the evidence that you're not trusting your heart. And that's what we see in Hawat here, I think, because he is a great character. He's not a bad character at all. I really like him a lot. But we do see in this instance that he's trusting the evidence, but not really trusting his anything he would know about the Lady Jessica, and just being loyal to her and saying no, she can't be it. And then sometimes the lines grade there because Jessica starts presenting evidence to him. She's saying, "Come on, you're a Mentat. You should see this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. How could I truly be the one?" And he's just kind of entrenched there and said he's not gonna take it. He's don't you tell me my position or something like that. At one point, they even really start to get at the heart of the matter, at the heart of the divide between them, when Jessica says, "Why have you never made full use of my abilities in your service to the Duke?" She asks. "Do you fear a rival of your position?" And she says, she thinks that before that, she thinks she stared at him, thinking of the Duke's men rubbing their woes together in the barracks until you could almost smell the charge there, like burnt insulation. They're becoming like the men of the pre-guild legend, she thought, like the men of the lost Arstercher, and Polaris, sick at their guns, forever seeking, forever prepared, forever unready. So the idea of just going too far in your calling, and what that is, too far in your calling when it comes to the masculine or feminine force, is a failure to reach across the divide and connect with the other force. That's really what Dune's about, is this disconnect between, these masculine and feminine forces, the rural and the urban, or whatever, all of these different kind of divides between people. So let's see.
And of course,
go ahead.
During all this, I don't know if you were going to bring it up, but during all this, we learn a little secret about Jessica.
Yes, that she's pregnant. Exactly. Yeah. She says, "Do I play my trump card?" We do learn that she knows she's pregnant. She's not showing or anything yet, but as a Bene Gesserit, she knows, pregnant with the Duke's daughter. Let's see.
Boy, does she have a story ahead of her.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's fascinating too when Thufir gains the full knowledge of what the Bene Gesserit power is when she uses the voice on him. Something that he never, and immediately he's like, "Well, if you could do that, how come you didn't use that for the benefit of the Duke?" And it's like, if I did, it would have just emasculated him more or whatever. Lots of reasons not to and stuff. So an interesting scene where they kind of try to come to a meeting of minds a little bit. It doesn't quite work, but it does bring them a little closer than before. That's the end of that chapter. Anything else you want to say on that chapter, Al?
No, I just like the confrontation because they're both we know they're both very loyal to the Duke, and you almost get the feeling that it's almost a jealousy, of each other's and how close they are to Leto. And I just kind of it was just a great scene with two great characters who both love their Duke, but there's something afoot and they're just trying to get to the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And of course it all hits the fan here in the next chapter. This is when,
boy, does it.
Yeah. This is when the plans of the traitors and the plans of the Harkonnens really come to effect here. Duke Leto's attacked. A number of people in his household have been attacked. He sees the smuggler that Jessica had sent for, shut out Mapes. He sees them dead or dying, as it were. And then we see something comes up behind him and hits him in the arm, I think it is, and he turns around to see Dr. Yueh in the corner back there with a dart gun. So it's this dart gun that he hits the Duke with, and he says, the drug on the dart is selective. Yueh said, you can speak, but I advise against it, and so forth. So he uses a dart gun first. Then he tells the Duke, so it numbs him. He can speak, but it numbs him, otherwise paralyzes him. And he tells the Duke that you can speak, but I'm going to put you unconscious so I can trade out this false tooth that you have. And of course, Yueh knows, about their dental and hygiene and not hygiene, medical records and stuff. So he takes out this false tooth and replaces it with one filled with a poisonous gas. And he tells him that this peg tooth, he even calls it a peg tooth, you're going to use this, and in exchange for me keeping Paul and Jessica safe, you're going to use this tooth on the Baron when you're brought before him, and kill him and get my revenge, get Yueh's revenge, because he knows he's almost certain that his wife is dead. He's still going to get the confirmation when he meets the Duke. And his wife taught him a little bit of that truth saying.
And this is where, and this is something I've been thinking about. Yueh is almost certain that his wife is dead. He'll never see his Wana again. But he still goes through this huge betrayal. And I don't know if he's doing it just on the sheer chance that she's alive, or that he knows if he's going to be with her, he needs to end up dead. Or it's almost suicidal, but he's taking everyone out with him.
Well, you're right, and that's a good thing to bring up. And what I get from his thoughts here is that it doesn't matter to him, even if she is dead. Still, the need for revenge on Harkonnens is still enough to drive him to this treachery, even if she was already dead. That's how far gone he is with that. He needs the revenge at the very least.
Yeah, but to bring down House Atreides.
Yeah, I know.
That's hatred of a single man. You bringing down an entire family, an entire household, an entire army.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, Yueh.
Exactly. But so he's not a character that you sympathize with to the point of, well, I kind of understand what he did. No, he's a villain. He's a villain.
Yeah.
But this is a good example of a sympathetic villain because it's not sympathetic to the point of, well, I can kind of see where he's coming from. No. You understand why he does what he does, but they're not proper reasons, and he does have that look of sadness as he looks down on the Duke and stuff. And but it's still villainous. It's quite villainous, One of the things I want to bring up about this, again, we looked at Yueh was using the dart before when he was trying to assassinate Paul earlier in the book, and we talked about how the dart, again, Herbert is a trained Jungian psychoanalyst at this point. He knows about these kinds of things. That's where this masculine versus feminine ideas are coming from in the story, and he knows that how to use phallic symbols. And again, phallic symbols, when done well, very, very, very rarely ever actually speak to any literal sexual activity. They're just kind of stand-ins for the masculine force or whatever, or the feminine force or whatever. So you have these, we obviously know that the sandworms are these large sort of phallic symbols on the planet of Dune. And we're going to see what they mean as phallic symbols in terms of masculine, virile, creative forces, because that's what they do, as we'll learn. But, and they're right out there, direct, not trying to hide. But look at Yueh's methods. The little dart that he tries to use on Paul to assassinate him. The little dart he uses to paralyze the Duke Leto. The little peg tooth he puts in his mouth and everything like that. You've got these examples of phallic symbols that are ineffective. They don't work because they're quote unquote unmanly, phallic symbols, right? They're not about just facing up to your enemy. They're about this sort of subterfuge and this kind of quiet, passive aggressive almost ways of doing things. Yeah,
and they're cowards. It's a coward's weapon.
Exactly.
You're not doing it face to face.
And you can really even draw the connection even more so between the symbols there and the fact that the crysknife, the weapons of the Fremen, are the teeth of the sandworm. They are tooths from the sandworm's mouth, and that's a wicked knife, a wicked weapon that you can use right out there. This other phallic symbol, and yet here's this tooth that he's putting into the Duke's mouth. And they keep saying it, remember the tooth, remember the tooth. He keeps kind of repeating it. Herbert has it come up over and over and over again, as if begging you to draw the comparison between this little ineffective tooth and the great tooth of the great, sandworm, that we'll see later and stuff. So
I never put those two together.
Yeah.
The tooth of the crisp knife and the tooth are both both weapons.
Exactly.
Very, very neat.
And in both, causing damage, but only one actually finds its mark, the crisp knife rather than the little tooth there. So next we pass, and again, look at how Herbert's quickening the pace at this point too. It's good. It's a good job that he's not lingering too much over. He's not going to show us when they captured Jessica or when they captured Paul or show us Dr. Yueh giving him something to sleep or whatever. We know all that. So now we can jump to them captured. We can fill in the background as we need to. So now we've got Jessica captured and tied in the basement. Yeah, go ahead.
It's almost like we're in the position of House Atreides. We're when you're unconscious, we're the ones awakening with Paul. We are awakening with Jessica.
Yeah.
So we have to fill in like they're filling in what happened.
Exactly. So that's good too, because it does fill in, like as they come to in their groggy state, they're able to recall, oh, this is what happened, or whatever. So it's good storytelling, exposition there. And again, them knowing, it's nice little tells, like the fact that they knew exactly when she'd wake up from the drug. They'd have to know her exact weight, her exact metabolism. Oh, Dr. Yueh. That's when she realizes he's the only one that could have been the traitor. So then there's also this Piter is a mentat for the Harkonnens. So you get this other little exchange between Jessica, Bene Gesserit, and another mentat, Piter here. And now Piter is someone who's completely given over to his emotions, to his lusts, basically. Lust for Jessica, a lust for power, ultimately. He's given over to that, and then and she sees certain things in his face that the Baron won't be able to, and so forth. So again, just juxtaposing those two forces together. We also get the Baron in that. Do you mind turning your headphones down just a touch, Al?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Let me find control. Sorry, I was using the weirding voice. Sorry.
We also get the Baron himself. And we start to get a little bit more of his appetites. He's talked about his darling, Fade Ralpha, and stuff like that. Now he talks about it's little subtle things, like when he slips that, okay, well, Piter, if you're going to give up Jessica, and obviously he's lusting after Jessica. He wants her for the power claim, too, to have the late Duke's woman. But he's also clearly lusting after. And then the Baron says, well, I gave up the boy, Paul. Long before he ever says, bring me the beautiful boy with the eyes who looks like Paul. You get that he was lusting after Paul, the young boy, too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I like the. I mean, there's the choice. He gives Piter. This the Baron's snapped fat fingers. I had to do that. This woman in exile from the Imperium or the Duchy of Atreides on Arrakis to rule as you see fit in my name. So, which would he take?
Yeah. It's ultimate power that he wants, because even if it's just women, he can get plenty of women with that power, But Jessica sees through it. Jessica sees through that he's lying. And Troy points out, maybe I didn't make that clear, but you're right. Piter is governed by his lust. That's not very mentat-like. So it's the idea of going so far into the cold calculation that your appetites end up creeping up again anyway. Piter shows us that with his spice selection and so forth.
And I'm sure being a Harkonnen doesn't help that.
Yeah, exactly.
Being around that environment.
Yeah. So we introduced the fact that the guard that Harkonnen has here is a deaf man, because the Baron knows that Lady Jessica as a Bene Gesserit can use the voice, so he brings a deaf man in, one that can't be lured by her Bene Gesserit ways. But as we're going to find out, she's going to speak to him in another language in which he very much still can be lured. So pay attention to that. and ensnared nonetheless, as well. So Now Paul awakens, and Jessica's worried at this point that he's going to try and use the voice. He won't know about the deaf man, but we find out that Paul's actually been conscious quite a while, taking it all in, pretending to be, unconscious still. And Paul's really starting to come into his own here in his power. He's going to surpass his mother here very shortly, which is a loaded scene as well.
Yeah, it's like once he accepted his fate, it's like a tidal wave coming in on him, the power.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Tyler, I think they even use that language there. Definitely. Mm-hmm. They get into the Thopter. They're going to be taken out and just left in the desert, maybe slashed a little bit, and then just left for the worms to take care of, evidence-wise. But once they get in, Jessica realizes that the seatbelt has been cut a little bit so they can break loose quite freely. Someone's prepared the Thopter for us. Mm-hmm. Let's see. At one point, she realizes that, she actually even has pity. These poor fools, Jessica thought, studying her guards and reviewing the Baron's words. They'll all be killed as soon as they report success on their mission. The Baron wants no witnesses. The idea that she can still even feel any kind of pity for them is impressive, mm-hmm. And that mark. They realize that someone's following them. There's probably watchers following the watchers as well. Just that idea of nothing taken for chance. Now, the one of the thugs with her, not the deaf guy, but the other one, wants to basically rape Jessica. Wants to have himself a high-born woman, as he says. And this is his downfall, right? His lust there is his downfall, because he goes to it says so Paul's awake at this point, and Jessica sees Paul preparing himself to use the voice. Zigo turns and look, he reached out for Jessica's skirt. Remove her gag, Paul commanded. So telling him to remove a different part of her covering there, her gag. Jessica felt the words rolling in the air, so it did a good job. The voice worked. He removed the gag. And Kenneth, the deaf one, says, "Stop that." Shut your trap, Zigo said. Her hands are tied. He freed the knot. The binding dropped. His eyes glittered as he studied Jessica. Kenneth put a hand on the pilot's arm. "Look, Zigo, no need to, but here we go. It's done now. The deed is done. Her gag's already been loosened." Jessica twisted her neck, spat out the gag. She pitched her voice in low, intimate tones. "Gentlemen, no need to fight over me." At the same time, she writhed sinuously for Kenneth's benefit. And Kenneth is the deaf one. So she's using the voice on Zigo, but then she's using her body's language on Kenneth as well, which is just as ensnaring, just as trapping. She saw them, I love this, she saw them grow tense, knowing that in this instant they were convinced of the need to fight over her. So by saying not fight over her, it makes them fight over her. Their disagreement required no other reason. In their minds, they were fighting over her. She held her face high in the instrument glow to be sure Kenneth could read her lips and said, "You mustn't disagree." They drew farther apart, glanced warily at each other. "Is any woman worth fighting over?" she asked. By uttering the words, by being there, she made herself infinitely worth their fighting. I love that line. Love it. So, and that's what you've got. The Bene Gesserits have been trained in this. They're trained as basically geishas or companions. In one respect, whatever they need to be to get their job done in terms of their manipulations of the gene pool and such, and genetic engineering. But so she couples it, and when you've abandoned the reason, or when you give over to the masculine or feminine too much, or to your lusts or whatever, you're going to be controlled. That's one of the things we're seeing happen in the book over and over. And in this case, she's controlling them. Then there's a scene when he kills the deaf guy, I think, and then he's about to dispatch of Paul, but she says, no, if you just let him go in the desert, what could happen? He's going to die anyway. I'll be more willing, or whatever. So he cuts Paul's bonds, and then as Paul jumps out, he turns around. It says, Paul felt the hand on his back to hurl him down into the sand, feigned a lurch against the door frame for purchase, turned as he thought to catch himself, lashed out with his right foot. This is interesting. The toe was aimed with a precision that did credit to his long years of training, as though all that training focused on this instant. Almost every muscle of his body cooperated in the placement of it. The tip struck the soft part of Zigo's abdomen, just below the sternum, slammed upward with terrible force over the liver and through the diaphragm to crush the right ventricle of the man's heart. That is one freaking wicked kick.
Precise.
I mean, yeah. And again, you get the image of Paul's toe, his foot, again, like another sort of phallic stabbing motion, but this one's precise. It finds its mark. It's not trying to be hidden. It's just boom, right there, I like that aspect there. Owen Lister for 499 says the image of Jessica flirting with the soldiers I'm hearing Led Zeppelin's "Whole Lot of Love" right now. I know why.
Love it and ornithopter.
Oh yeah, that's the whole other band. Back to our Aerosmith there. That'd be a good Filk song, Al. You should write that one.
Love it and ornithopter.
So they escape there. Then we go back to the palace and Dr. Yueh standing over the Duke as he's just been unconscious. He sees a Sardaukar come in. He recognizes them. They're, even when they wear different uniforms, you're going to recognize these vicious, wicked Sardaukar. He gets in a little bit of trouble. He has to because he's removed the Duke's ducal ring, the signet ring, and given that and left that for Paul, obviously. But he's got to avoid being talked by a truthsayer, questioned by a truthsayer about it.
Well, I do like the description of the Sardaukar. There was a casual air of brutality about him, a sense of toughness and poise that sent a shiver through Yueh.
Exactly.
There's an aura about them of what they've become.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, they've given into that the violence of the world too. So they've become sort of lopsided human beings, in that sense as well. And there's not a lot that goes on in that chapter, but just Yueh's realization that he's called traitor. They stay out of my way, you. They say, even when they've profited by me, they despise me. Yueh thought. He straightened himself as he was pushed aside, regained some of his dignity. Wait for the Baron. So he's there to wait for the Baron. He's there to see that. Soon I will know. Soon I will see the Baron, and I will know. And the Baron, he will encounter a small tooth. I like the way he says that. Like, that's going to be his downfall, this small tooth. Now, in theory, it might work, but we know it doesn't. And again, it's because it's an indirect way of striking out. It's an indirect way of dealing with the enemy, and too much room for failure.
Yeah, I guess a lot of variables that could go wrong. I mean, you've got a drugged out Duke who has to remember the tooth. And like I said, gas being not exactly the most precise weapon.
Yeah, exactly. So next chapter, we move on to the Baron's palace there, as he's going to have these people brought to him. And he's seeing the change of power take place. He sees a lot of the Duke's fighting men. They're being killed off. He says, he nodded. Failure was, said, so a pity to waste such fighting men as the Duke's, he thought. He smiled more broadly, laughing at himself. Pity should be cruel. He nodded. Failure was by definition expendable. The whole universe sat there open to a man who could make the right decisions. The uncertain rabbits had to be exposed, had to run for their burrows, else how could you control them and breed them? Well, what does that sound like right there? Who does that? What kind of agenda does that sound like? That sounds like the Bene Gesserits, breeding people like rabbits and controlling them and controlling the flow and everything like that. And we have Baron Harkonnen, who, as a not just a homosexual, a masculine who seeks the masculine. Again, the masculine and feminine not coming together there in the psychoanalytic terms, but also someone who seeks young boys. That perverted, sense of unnatural is all there, and he also sees the world like that Bene Gesserit way. So you got that aspect coming in there too.
I like that. Sorry to go off course just a second, but I love the introductory part of this chapter. There's a legend that the instant Duke Leto Atreides died, a meteor streaked across the skies above his ancestral palace on Caladan. From the introduction to a child's history on Muad'Dib by Princess Irulan, who is quite a prolific writer.
Yeah, and all of these coming from Princess Irulan too. You get the idea, especially like when she quotes from songs of Muad'Dib and stuff like that. Well, then you have to think, did he ever really utter those words? Or did he utter something quite like it? It's the idea of, you think about that in terms of biblical study. I'm working on my master's in theology, and even coming at it from an understanding and a belief that it's all divinely inspired, there's still the questions of, okay, well, this is written in Greek, but Jesus certainly would have said it in Aramaic. So there are things to have been said there, or is this just the approximation of what was said in somebody's memory? So yeah. You think about all those levels. This is what we're going to kind of come to a head when we get to Paul's realizations about himself at the end of our reading, at the end of book 1. But we find out the Baron's plan. He just wants Piter to take over the duchy there, the duchy there, in order to be made a sacrifice, basically, for the people to hate him, so that Fade Routha can come in and be the savior of the people and everything like that. So a setup for him. Then we have this wonderful scene where Dr. Yueh comes in. Now Dr. Yueh sees the Baron. He knows my what's her name? My Wana is dead. My Wana is dead, and he knows that the Baron's going to kill him. But he's playing this game, and the Baron thinks he's being all witty and stuff like here. He says, "Oh yes," the Baron nodded. "Now I remember. So I did. That was my promise. That was how we bent the imperial conditioning. You couldn't endure seeing your Bene Gesserit witch grovel in Piter's pain amplifiers. Well, the Baron Valdemir Harkonnen always keeps his promises. I told you I'd free her of the agony and permit you to join her. So be it." He waved a hand at Piter. Piter's blue eyes took a glazed look. His movement was cat-like in its sudden fluidity. The knife in his hand glistened like a claw as it flashed into Yueh's back. The old man stiffened, never taking his attention from the Baron. "So join her," the Baron spat. This is his big witty thing retort. Yueh stood swaying. His lips moved with careful precision, and his voice came in oddly measured cadence. "You think you defeated me. You think I did not know what I thought for my Wana, or what I bought for my Wana." He toppled. No bending or softening. It was like a tree falling. "So join her," the Baron repeated, but his words were like a weak echo. Like totally... completely robbed the Baron of this little moment.
Yeah, no. He was like, he thought he was so, like this little twist.
Yeah.
To surprise Yueh, but Yueh knew it all along.
Exactly. And it just it colors the whole event for the Baron, because he wants to gloat over Duke, but he's like, "Oh, curse that doctor, damn that cursed doctor all through eternity," or whatever, because of stealing this moment from me and such. As he does, as we find out. So they threaten the Duke with torture if he doesn't tell them where Jessica and Paul are. So at least the Duke realizes that Jessica and Paul are safe at that moment. And this is an interesting point. Leto suddenly recalled a thing Gurney Halleck had once said, seeing a picture of the Baron. "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy." All right, so that's a quote from Revelation about the Antichrist. And if we've got Paul as the Dune's Messiah, set up as very much a Christ figure, then these verses or whatnot are setting up the Harkonnen there as the Antichrist. And you can even possibly look at Fade Routha as that, but certainly Baron Harkonnen. And that means that everything Harkonnen stands for will be the opposite of what Paul stands for as Muad'Dib, as we'll see. But just setting up that imagery. Let's see. Again, the Baron's interiority. This thought calmed the Baron. Let's see. He said, "Another failure. Time to quit stalling with this fool Duke. This stupid fool who didn't realize how much hell there was so near him. Only a nerve's thickness away." This thought calmed the Baron, overcoming his reluctance to have a royal person subject to pain. He saw himself suddenly as a surgeon, exercising endless supple scissors dissections, cutting away the masks from fools, exposing the hell beneath. Rabbits, all of them. Again, that idea of lording over all of that power when you separate yourself into yourself, and you overcome by the lusts and whatnot, appetites, certainly we can say for Harkonnen, but very much similar to what the Bene Gesserits are doing in terms of the final result. So the Duke uses the tooth. It works just about perfectly on everybody except for the Baron. The Baron escapes it. And then he's going to have to let it be known. The Sardaukar wants to come and take a look at the body and whatnot, so the Emperor's going to know that the Harkonnen house has got a weakness in it. And this is something that the Baron fears above all. But he is, he's a formidable villain, because he says, "No, we must adjust, and he's got all these plans in motion anyway. So you're definitely terrified of him, not literally him in person, because what can he do? The big floating fat man, but the power, the mind, the villainy, the machine that he controls is quite not to be toyed with.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have anything else in that chapter?
No, but I did like you kind of it wasn't a lot, but I do like the way Yueh went out and what he said. there was those moments that the Baron was a little what's the word I'm looking for? Paranoid.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "What do you mean by that?
Exactly.
What
What could he
already
mean?
defeated? What's
Exactly.
going on?" But then he just gives into his own little. Nah, it wasn't anything. I'm just, I'm gonna eat. I'm gonna sit here, enjoy my dinner, and make fun of the Baron, make fun of the Duke.
Yeah. I am hungry. He keeps saying that. Let us eat now. Yeah. And
But
and the
then,
next,
I'm sorry, but then when it all
please.
goes south, the first thing is like, oh man, the Emperor's gonna be ticked.
Yeah.
Because that he knows that he could be let go at any minute as well.
Mm-hmm. So even though Yueh didn't succeed in killing the Baron, he did succeed in becoming quite a thorn in the Baron's side. Absolutely. Yeah, Paladin Nemesis the Baron is a master of fourth dimensional chess, placing the pieces at the right place in the right time. Exactly. Yeah. Really. And Piter was a part of that, his Mentat, but he even plays his own Mentat. Learns the desires of the Mentat's heart as well. So in the next chapter, we are with Jessica and Paul at this point. They are in a still tent. They're waiting in the desert.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just was reading the last line of that last chapter. Baron turned away, began moving with his bouncing, suspender-buoyed pace through his chambers. Yes, he thought, the one with the lovely eyes, the one that looks so much like the young Paul Atreides.
Yeah.
Giving in to that depravity.
Exactly. It's okay if we go into the next chapter now?
Yeah, sorry, I just thought it just speaks to the Baron. Even through he almost dies, he's still upset, that the Emperor might be upset, but you know what? I'm gonna have my little dalliance.
Yeah. Food and a dalliance.
There you go.
He's got his life complete there for him. Yeah. So Paul is really going through his transformation here then in the still tent with his mother. Remember, he's had Bene Gesserit training as well as Mentat training. He has that feminine force training and the masculine force training, and it's all coming to a head within him at once. And what is compounding it is his exposure to the spice. We'll talk about the spice here in a second and what that does to him. But he's having trouble mourning for his father. He says, I loved my father, Paul thought, and knew this was for truth, that he was dead, and that he loved him. I should mourn him. I should feel something. But he felt nothing except, here's an important fact. It was one with all the other facts. All the while his mind was adding sense impressions, extrapolating, computing. Halleck's words came back to Paul. Mood's a thing for cattle or for making love. You fight when necessity arises, no matter your mood. Perhaps that's it, Paul thought. I'll mourn for my father later when there's time. Maybe his brain's just kind of compartmentalizing, he thinks, but he feels this thing going on within him now. As he's talking to his mother, he realizes soon that his mother is behind him on this. He's ahead of his mother in his knowledge. We'll see that come to head as a quiz that's Haderach in a second, but this is key. He tells his mother's words had provoked another train of thought in Paul, a duke's concern for all the people they'd lost this night. People are the true strength of a great house, Paul thought, and he remembered Hawat's words. Parting with people is a sadness, a place is only a place. Well, if you go back and look at those words, that quote that Hawat said, Hawat didn't say parting with people is a sadness. He said parting with friends is a sadness. Mm-hmm. It's a very subtle change, but Paul changes friends to people. Now, you can take that a couple different ways. He's thinking about the strength of a duke's house. So people, quote unquote, friends are just people. They're all an asset for strength. Or the act that these people, whether they're friends or foes, they are the source of sadness, not a place necessarily. We'll kind of take a look at that. But it's an important distinction to make, I think. Mm-hmm. He starts to give some information to his mother. He ends up telling her about the fact that she herself is Harkonnen. And that's a big, whoa, that's a reveal. Yep.
Not only Harkonnen, but daughter of
the Baron.
Of the Baron.
Exactly. So Paul himself is the grandson of Baron Harkonnen. It really twisted, but that's the Bene Gesserit way. And, because Jessica didn't know her own parentage. And as Paul is having all of these troubles about, a time for this, not being able to grieve, Jessica quotes to him from the OC Bible, which is, pulling from Ecclesiastes, the famous phrase, a time to get, a time to lose. Jessica quoted from the OC Bible, a time to keep, a time to cast away, a time for love, a time for hate, a time for war, a time for peace. And this idea, again, that we've got these ancient, from a psychoanalytic standpoint, which really kind of played into the hero's journey, because Campbell came out of a Jungian context. You've got this idea of the ancient unconscious, the ancient stories of mankind are still in our unconscious, and they're still going to find ways to tell themselves over and over. So this ancient wisdom from the Bible and such like that comes up, we see more. Paul's grappling with this. He thinks he's a monster. He says, I have let's see, people. He saw them in such swarms they could not be listed, yet in his mind he cataloged them, even the guildsmen. And he thought, the guild, there'd be a way for us, my strangeness accepted as a familiar thing of high value, always with an assured supply of the now necessary spice. They are now addicted to the spice. And Paul realizes that once you're in that close proximity with it for a while, as the Fremen said, no one leaves Arrakis without our will, because you die if you left Arrakis. Once you stay there, you become dependent on the spice, even in the air, that kind of idea. But he thinks, okay, that's one way I could get out of this, is I could go to the guild. The guild, my strangeness accepted as a familiar thing of high value. What strangeness is he talking about? This mentat brain kicking in right now, which is so completely divorced of emotion that he can't even mourn his father. That's the strangeness they would accept, because they are the far out, flung masculine form that's so beyond that, at least in terms of, to the point of it being distorted. See, Ralph Runyon says, I'm wondering how you feel about the Baron as a villain, considering he's quite criticized by people for being a caricature. I like the fact that he's a caricature, because he's not the kind of villain that'll oppose you or threaten you physically, but he's the kind of villain that'll control that threat, and it's an interesting take. I like it. I think it works quite well. He's so unmasculine, and by that I don't mean like judgment terms or like insults. I mean in terms of the psychoanalytic masculinity and femininity. He's ineffective. He couldn't even move without the and this is not because of any kind of medical handicap. It's just because he can't control his appetites. He can't stop eating, so he wouldn't even be able to lift his girth. He's ineffective when it comes to his sexual appetites in the terms of breeding, right? Because he goes after these young boys rather than any kind of fertility thing like that. So I'm just speaking in psychoanalytic terms there. For the ineffective masculinity.
Well, politically, he's a puppet master.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. He pulls strings. He's not the one actually doing the action. Just like the whole thing where he can claim even to a truth sayer, did you kill the Duke? Nope.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. So he's able to keep his own hands clean, while everyone else is doing the dirty work, getting their hands dirty.
Yeah. Owen Lister says, so grandpa is lusting after his grandson? Gross. And the thing about it, I don't even think knowing that Paul was his grandson would stop.
Nope.
Because he's already lusting after his nephew, Fade Routha, So, yeah, it's pretty twisted. Absolutely. Troy said, for all the times I've read this book, I still caught something new when Paul sees his possible futures. One is as a guild navigator. There's a what if story for you. Exactly. And he has to see those possibilities because he has to choose which one he'll choose, which path before him shows the best promise or the most promise of uniting those masculine and feminine forces within himself and possibly elsewhere others.
It's like climbing a tree. You stay on the strongest branch.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Then you have this moment where this is interesting too from a psychoanalytic standpoint. Jessica realizes how much farther he's advancing from her. He becomes a little angry with her. His mother's beside. She says he says he's a monster and so forth. He says, Paul said, Paul, what's wrong? He said. I'm here, Paul. She said, it's all right. What have you done to me? He demanded. In a burst of clarity, she sensed some of the roots in the question and said, I gave birth to you. That's just like a typical mother thing to do. Like whenever mom is blamed, right? They'll go back to that. Well, I gave birth. I was so many hours in labor, It was from instinct as much as her own subtle knowledge, the precise, correct answer to calm him down. He felt her hands holding him, focused on the dim outline of her face. Certain gene traces in her facial structure were noted in a way by his unflowing mind, getting at the Harkonnen thing. Let go of me, he said. She heard the iron in his voice, obeyed. And then she says, there's no more childhood in his voice, she thought. And as she said, I hope the thing any parent hopes, that you'd be superior, different, and so forth. So there's no more childhood in his voice. That means there's no more of her being able to control him. He's now become a man. And the mother can no longer control a son who's become the man, at least psychologically, right? They can always try to find the psychological child within there, in an unhealthy mother-son relationship. So it's, again, that psychoanalytic knowledge coming to the forefront there of the characters. Paul says, or Troy says, Paul also draws a comparison between the navigator's prescience to see paths through space and his ability to see paths through time. Absolutely. And that's what the Bene Gesserits were lusting after themselves, right? They want a Kwisatz Haderach who can see those paths that the masculine can see, because they can't. They want the man who can see the masculine paths in a Bene Gesserit way, which is the way in which they see their feminine paths. And it's the ultimate, let us have our Kwisatz Haderach, who will be that masculine force that we can still control. We will bring him about with our own prophecy, our own genetic, whatnot, and we will be able to control that masculine. Well, that meeting of the masculine and feminine is no kind of meeting at all. If one's controlling the other, either or, that's not the fertile and effective and productive meeting.
It's also the masculine and the feminine actually coming together to form something else. I don't want to use all the weird social stuff, but Paul does have the masculine and the feminine within him. So he's become the ultimate combination of both.
Exactly.
Or neither. He is something different. He is the Kwisatz Haderach.
Exactly. And he tells her about how the spice changes anyone who gets this much of it. But thanks to you, I could bring the change to consciousness. I don't get to leave it in the unconscious where its disturbance can be blinked out. I can see it. Talking about the things that are happening to him. She realizes then that they're trapped there. She thinks of herself. So here we live out our lives, she thought, on this hell planet. The place is prepared for us if we can evade the Harkonnens, and there's no doubt of my course, a broodmare, preserving an important bloodline for the Bene Gesserit plan. She's still thinking along the lines of these Bene Gesserits, and what do they make of her? Nothing more than a broodmare. She gets the idea that, and finally starts to see the holes in this the Bene Gesserit way of life, as opposed to the one she knew of the Spacing Guild or of the Mentats who leave off any kind of emotion and whatnot. And down a little later, Paul says, we'll find a home among the Fremen. Paul said, where your missionaria Proctivia has brought us a bolt hole. They've prepared a way for us in the desert, Jessica told herself. But how can we know the missionary Proctivia? So prepared a way for us in the desert. That's more messianic language. John the Baptist preparing a way for the Messiah, that kind of idea, coming out of the wilderness and whatnot. And that's these old religions preparing a way for the new Messiah here, basically, as it literally happens here. This is interesting. Owen Lister's making a joke here, which is, I just realized Paul is bisexual, masculine and feminine, though I mean the old definition than the modern one, but it's still fun. You're right. Yes, the old definition. So I've talked about this before. The Freudian bisexual isn't anything to do with your sexual orientation, like what turns you on sexually. That has nothing to do with that. The Freudian bisexual is one who has a fully developed masculine and feminine side within them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the idea of, and that's what everybody wants to get to a little bit in terms of integration, especially once we get to Jungian psychoanalytics. But yeah. So, let's see.
I do like Paul's anger, though. I must tell you about my waking dream, Paul said. Now there was a fury in his voice. To be sure you accept what I say, I tell you first, I know you'll bear a daughter, my sister, here on Arrakis.
Yeah.
I mean, he just knows. And that freaks her out.
Yes, he thought, yes, mother of mine, among the Fremen you'll acquire the blue eyes and a callus beside your lovely nose from the filter tube to your still suit, and you'll bear my sister, Saint Alia of the Knife. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about that name and the import of that as we go forward. Definitely. The anger, it comes out. Now, Jessica still so program with her Bene Gesserit training. Oh, he is the Kwisatz Haderach. And she thinks, oh, I have to get in touch with the schools and everything like that. And he tells her, you're thinking of the Kwisatz Haderach. Put that out of your mind. I'm something unexpected. Now, what's happening here? The text has been telling us that there's this Kwisatz Haderach, this Messiah expected by the Bene Gesserits, and even it's really the same one expected by the Fremen, because if the missionary of Proctivia, has been the one to plant those seeds, and it's the same thing. But he says, no, I'm something unexpected. I think what he's getting at here in terms of messianic and Christ type is the idea that Jesus, in terms of Jesus' own story as a Christ, the original Christ type, obviously, wasn't the Messiah that the people expected, right? The people were expecting a Messiah to be born who would overthrow the Roman oppression and make Israel the great, huge, united kingdom, it was under David, and physically here on earth, that kind of thing, politically, political power. Whereas Jesus came to preach a spiritual kingdom and then set up a physical church rather than a political power necessarily. So that's something unexpected, and that lays the terms or lays the groundwork for what we're going to see here in the rest of the novel.
And once the Bene Gesserit kind of had figured that it wasn't Paul who was the Kwisatz Haderach, but like through Paul, the Kwisatz Haderach would come with the right breeding to a Harkonnen.
That was the Reverend Mother, I think, was thinking that. Yeah,
I think he's like the step before. Although he bears all the powers of the Kwisatz Haderach, there is something different about him because he's not on the right genetic level yet.
Yeah, and that's again though that's her wanting her expectations rather than what would truly come from this level of being able to do both of these masculine and feminine forces.
Fate decided what would happen.
Exactly. Now, Paul, he says, I'm a seed. That's what he calls himself. And that's kind of plays into what you're saying there. He's a seed, and seed in terms of the Jesse tree, right? The root of Jesse, and the seed of David, becoming the Messiah there in that sense. He had seen two main branchings along the way ahead. In one, he confronted an old evil baron and said, hello, grandfather. The thought of that path and what lay ahead of it sickened him. I don't blame you. Then the other path held long patches of gray obscurity, except for peaks of violence. He had seen a warrior religion there, a fire spreading across the universe with the Atreides green and black banner, waving at the head of fanatic legions, drunk on spice liquor. Gurney Halleck, with the other few of his father's men, a pitiful few, were among them, all marked by the hawk symbol from the shrine of his father's skull. I can't go that way, he muttered. That's what the old witches of your schools really want. So he's thinking, what is he going to do? What path is he going to choose? What path is the one to truly bring together these forces within him? He remained silent, thinking like the seed he was, thinking with the rare consciousness as he had at first experienced as a terrible purpose. He found that he no longer could hate the Bene Gesserit or the Emperor or even the Harkonnens. They were all caught up in the need of their race to renew its scattered inheritance, to cross and mingle and infuse their bloodlines in a great new pooling of genes. And the race knew only one sure way for this, the ancient way, the tried and certain way that rolled over everything in its path, jihad. Certainly I can't choose that way, he thought. But then he saw again in his mind's eyes the shrine of his father. Jessica cleared her throat so as Jessica saying, the Fremen will give us sanctuary. He looked up, staring across the green lighted tent and at the inbred patrician lines on her face. Yes, he said, that's one of the ways. He nodded. Yes, they'll call me Muad'Dib, the one who points the way. Yes, that's what they'll call me. And as he closed his eyes, thinking, now, my father, I can warn you, he felt the tears coursing down his cheeks. So once he decides on his path, the one that will bring those masculine and feminine forces together, then he's able to reclaim those emotions and actually mourn his father and actually cry for his father. Really cool, beautiful picture of what's going on, behind the curtain, in the turmoil there.
Yeah, because for a while there, you were fearing losing any aspect of his humanity.
Yeah.
Not being able to mourn. But this gives you the thing. It's like he has to go through all the thought process first. It's like the computer comes first, then the human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he is still human.
Yeah. Paladin Demo says Jesus was a chance birth. Paul was purposely made. Well, not in terms of theology, not at all. I mean, that's the reason the Gospels start out. So many of the Gospels, Luke and Matthew start out with the genealogies. The idea is that God is preparing the race and the world, and even the genealogy, all right down to Mary herself, who would be the one to be the virgin who bore the child. As Isaiah has that secondary prophetic meaning for it and everything like that. So, in spiritual terms in the Bible, but then in political and twisted and conniving terms here in Dune, as Herbert's described it, or designed it. Troy says, actually, Paul realizes that the Bene Gesserits wanted to correct some genetic anomaly in the Harkonnen line through a female descendant from Jessica. Yeah. That's why he realized that was there.
That's right. Yeah, it was supposed to be from the daughter.
That was from. That's why they brought her there. The one, marrying the Harkonnen with the Atreides line. Yeah. Oh, unless I'm hearing "Veteran of the Psychic Wars" by Oyster Cult for some reason. Yeah, great one, great song, great band, good track there. That's good stuff. So that's our reading for the night. Anything else you want to talk about or cover in that?
No, about to enter the meat of the book. I mean,
yes,
he set up a great world. He's got you to this point. The machinations behind everything, but now you're about to get to a whole different aspect when we meet the Fremen.
Yeah, definitely.
We learn that culture.
Yeah. So, looking at the reading for the next week, my initial desire was to read about 100 pages in my book, but I can see everybody hemming and hawing about that already. So I think we'll take it a little slower. I think we'll go. Let me count up the chapters. So let's see. Let me move that marker there. So
I could do chapter numbers on things.
I know. Come on, Herbert, help us out. 1, 2.
I've got like a little section. I've got like a section. I want to see if I'm right or close.
3. Sorry, I'm going really slow to make sure that I don't accidentally turn any pages together and lose that counter that thing there. 6, 7.
This is very exciting. Listening to pages.
All right, so 8 chapters into book 2, and that would put us the chapter we'd stop at is where the little epigraph says prophecy and prescience, how can they be put to the test in the face of the
so cool.
Okay, you got it. All right, well, as long as Al's got it, everything else fine. If he didn't get it, he'd be asking me for pictures and all kinds of things. But
the last thing you read is even the Hawks can appreciate these facts.
Yes, even the Hawks can appreciate these facts is the last bit of read. So I will put that picture in the group. But
I have pictures on Hot Rock. I got it exactly.
So that'll be a good little digestible portion for us. A bit more than this week, obviously, but trying to finish this up in some sort of basic time that's not too far into October. I think that'd be good, a digestible portion for next week. So I will. So about 8 chapters into book 2, chapter breaks anyway. Into book 2 is where we're going to go for next week, and I'll put the images in the Facebook group there. Jedi Master Zetopia, thank you very much for the $5 super chat. Says, thanks for the great discussion. Give us to read as much as you want. The spice must flow. Yes. Thank you, sir. Thanks. I appreciate the appreciation too. Yeah, it's fun doing these book studies. Like I said, I'm sure you can go on YouTube and find any number of Dune analyses and studies, and lots of them will point out things that I'm not necessarily pointing out. When you've got a book or such as a rich text to draw from as Dune, there are a lot of things to go, but I tend to go follow my interests, which are more of the mythological or the psychoanalytic, and then aspects of the writing too, in terms of some certain things he does well, the pacing or the world building and whatnot. So appreciate that. Anything else, Al?
No.
Okay. Well, so yeah, I think we'll kind of cut it there because I've got I need some food and some brain food here and kind of recalibrate my brain here. Do a little work before I go to sleep later.
You're hungry.
I am hungry. Exactly. Where are my suspensors? So that's it for tonight. Thanks for hanging out during the pre-show. Thanks for hanging out with the book study. Lots of fun. That's Thursday. So tomorrow night, do we know if Fan is doing Fan Man tonight, or is he going to call it a week because of the hurricane, or what do you know? Do you know anything?
I believe he wants to do something tomorrow night.
Okay.
He has electricity, from what I understand.
Okay, cool. All right.
He has time left on StreamYard. So
okay. Oh, hey, Troy guessed it too. Troy guessed the right page count too, just like Al. So, all right. Oh, and listeners said my page turning provides some excellent ASMR. That would be great if that would make money on my channel. I could just sit here and turn pages all day long for you folks. So that's Friday. Saturday, nothing's going on of interest. Don't worry about it. Saturday on Big Al's channel. What's going on, Al?
We're watching a little movie. We're going to be watching 1985's The Goonies.
The Goonies.
Yes.
Goonies will be a good rewatch. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. Honestly, I wanted to, but I got a lot of work to do.
Goonies never say die.
Goonies never say die. That's right.
Shuffle.
Lots of great, wonderful moments. A great Richard Donner film. Really, truly epic. I hope to try and be there. I'll see if I can, but we'll see. That's Saturday night. Sunday night is a couple things. Sunday night study hall on Age of Boomer's channel. So Troy and Age of Boomer and maybe some other guests will be there. I think I missed Wolftown Media does a Weeb watch of his own on Saturdays, I think, which is a little bit earlier than the Saturday night rewatch. But it's all on the Facebook group, the calendars that Troy so generously keeps together there on the Facebook group. You can go there. They're in the file section. I also try to keep them all marked as announcements if you click on announcement. So that's just a really wonderful resource. And really big thanks and hats off to Troy for doing that for everybody, because that's a huge help to the community. So thanks much to that for Troy and all of that. That's Sunday. Really cool. So if you missed the old office hours, where to get that kind of content, where it's just a live stream and a live chat about that kind of thing, is the study hall. I'll be providing more of my own specific commentary during pre-shows or car videos, but to get that live, chat feel of it, that's where you want to go for that study hall. Monday night, Sound Engraver will be back with her Monday Night Musings, our Monday Night Muse, and that's she's going to have a great show for us on Monday night. I don't think she has a topic quite yet, but she's mulling over some ideas, as she said. So that's Monday night, usually around 9:30, something like that. And that's always a lot of good fun. You definitely really educational too. It's so cool because it's something we glean stuff from Sound Engraver that's so not anything you would get from any of our channels, and the musical knowledge, but also not just musical knowledge. I mean, she's got her own way of thinking and seeing different things when it comes to stories or writing and stuff like that. So definitely highly recommend you subscribe to all of these channels. Troy's dropping the links to everybody's. Very much appreciated. Age of Boomer, Wolftown Media, all these channels need support and help. And if you're part of the community, it would be a big deal if you go do that. He's got Sound Engraver's channel too in the Facebook group. Oh, Sound Engraver's back here. She says Monday Night Muse, 9 p.m. or 9:30 p.m. Topic might be something art related or electronic music or the like. Yeah, so something like that. Cool. Definitely. And that's Monday night. Tuesday night, we will be back on my channel for the very first, kicking off our season. Our last time I called it Monstober, I think. Excuse me. Something in my throat. But tell them about the movie we're going to watch, Al, while I drink something.
We're watching 1933's The Invisible Man, starring Claude Rains.
Yes.
In a masterful performance, entirely done, either not with his face or wrapped up.
Yep. Yeah. His voice, really just acting through his voice. Phenomenal.
Yeah. I would say I think it's probably the best, or at least one of the top three of all the Universal as far as the quality. My personal favorite's The Mummy.
Well, a lot of people forget it's James Whale, the same director from Frankenstein and The Bride of Frankenstein. It's the great James Whale doing The Invisible Man. So So it's going to be high quality, absolutely.
Yeah, I think Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, it took both those films to really top the Universal list for me.
Mhm.
But the Mummy, I love, I just have a fondness for.
Sure, yeah. And we're going to get to that, absolutely, definitely. So,
yeah. Invisible Man, probably the most prolific killer of all the monsters, of all the Universal guys, too.
Yeah, we'll talk about a lot of themes in that we're going to talk about. It's really fascinating. And so I've been doing Tuesday Night Classics every Tuesday, looking at classic films from like the 30s or 40s. So I thought, well, Halloween's coming around the corner. Let's go ahead and take September and October and just cover some Universal monsters, those classic 30s, 40s monster movies. So
Tuesday Night Terror, Tuesday Night Thriller. It's all T's, but it's a th sound.
Yeah. Tuesday Night Terror.
Thursday Thrillers. That would have been awesome.
Thursday Thrillers. Yeah, nice.
Tuesday Terror.
Yeah. So that's Tuesday. Wednesday, nothing's going on. But Tuesday and Thursday mornings, FanMan will be doing a Second Cup Cafe around 11 a.m. And then Thursday, we'll be back here for our next section that we just talked about. And I will post that image in the Facebook group. Nutters Network asks, when is your next gaming stream? That's a great question and kind of a timely question because I am planning that. I think I might just do it on YouTube, but maybe I'll stream it on Facebook and YouTube. I don't know. But I do want to go ahead. I started it before, but I never kept up with it. I would like to start Knights of the Old Republic and actually do an entire playthrough, not in one sitting, but actually do it somewhat relatively close. And I think the end of September, early October would be an area where I'd have a lot of time available to do that. So, like that last week, first week, September, October, or whatever, I'll try and stream that whole game if I can, because I think a lot of people don't have the consoles or aren't necessarily gamers, but they know what an amazing and crucial story Knights of the Old Republic is to the EU. So it would give people a chance to kind of receive that story, and I'll be quiet and shut up and let you read all the things that happen on it, but I'll talk too, chat with you guys as I'm playing along. So I think that might be something I'll do soon. So yeah, good question. All right. I'm talked out right now. I need to go eat a little something. But thank you everyone for hanging out with us. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you guys and join the streams, talk and hang out in the pre-shows. But any last words from you, Al?
Just think about riding the sandworm.
Oh my gosh. You had to bring that back, didn't you?
Shai Halud.
Gosh. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the hero stories you love.
Yeehaw.